Welcome to Wires from the Deep, a Silo Series podcast. Today is Sunday, July 2nd, 2023, and you're listening to episode 12, They're Good in Supply. I'm your host, Crystal, here with my co-host, Kelly.
Hey, everyone.
And it's finale week. Woohoo! We've got a full house. We have 3 guests joining us today for our breakdown of Outside, the season 1 finale of Silo. First, we're going to welcome back Angela Traficante from Lambda Editing.
Hello, everyone.
And we also have Will Swardstrom, who is a dad, teacher, and author of a short story featured in Wool Gathering.
Hello, hello.
And last but not least, we have Australian hard science fiction writer Peter Cawdron.
Hello.
Okay, so something that we like to have our guests do is share their connection to Wool. So can you briefly share how you first became a fan? And why don't we start with Angela?
So I actually, the first time I heard of Wool was through my husband, who was reading it back when it was coming out on Kindle in parts. But last year, Crystal invited me to be part of Through the Pages, which was a Wool breakdown that we did as a group with Crystal, Will, Peter, and a couple of other people. And I was the fresh perspective. So that was my first time reading Wool last year.
All right, and next, Will?
Yeah, so back in 2012, I don't remember exactly when. I think it was the summer. I just stumbled on the Wool short story when it was in that first part. I think I'd just gotten a Kindle, and my wife had, and I was trying to find some cheap books to fill it. And I think I just kind of read it as it developed, and it was still so early that the community was so small. He was responsive to all the readers. And so I kind of quickly started to know Hugh and all these different people as well. And even wrote a couple stories in that universe as well. And so I've kind of really been a part of it for over a decade now.
All right, and Peter?
Yeah, well, Hugh and I first came across each other online back in 2011. He had just published the first short story of Wool, which covered Holstein, and I'd launched a book called Anomaly. So we were both experimenting with this new concept of Kindle digital publishing at the same time. It was quite something to see the ride that Wool went on as it took off over the years.
So I know that we usually publish our breakdown episodes by late Saturday or early Sunday, and I know today maybe people who listen to our show are wondering what happened. You know, it's the finale. Shouldn't you have your show up on time? But it's because we did get together. We got everybody together yesterday to record. We were an hour and 45 minutes into it, and I noticed that I hadn't pressed record.
But it was a really good episode. You guys would really like it.
It was.
Yeah, you missed all of our great analysis.
Amazing.
I
But
know.
really, it was just like a run through for today's amazing episode. Now we know
Yeah,
all
it
the
was-
things
it
we
was
want to
practice.
say, things we shouldn't say.
Practice run. But yeah, we enjoyed it. But now we're back. Better than ever.
Here we are.
Before we get to the breakdown, Wires from the Deep is brought to you by Pico's House. If you have a manuscript that you're looking to develop, fine-tune, or polish for self-publication or submission to agents and publishers, Pico's House offers comprehensive editorial services for fiction authors. The team at Pico's House helps hundreds of authors each year and specializes in science fiction, fantasy, middle grade, and thrillers. To find out more, go to picoshouse.com, PIKKOSHOUSE.com. Please mention that you heard about Pico's House on Wires from the Deep. All right, so let's get right into the breakdown. So it brings us right back into Patrick's apartment where Jules had been sitting and she was watching the Jane Carmody's cleaning video. But her immediate reaction is she wants everybody to see it, right?
She wants to go viral.
Yeah,
she wants
she wants
She
the
knew
ginger
that
hacker
word.
to. She wants the ginger hacker to go and show it to everyone, and she starts. I think you could see like Patrick's like freaking out, right? He's like, "Oh my god, this is becoming so much worse than I thought. I thought you just wanted to use my computer." Poor guy, right?
It made me laugh when he wants to watch and she's like, "No, you have to come with us." He's just like, God damn it.
That dude is really into that watch.
It's a little weird.
I was with her too, though. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you're about to be arrested, man." You just want to add one more crime onto the mix. But yeah, so they leave the apartment and he's kind of an idiot. He's like standing at the corner and he's looking around at the raiders going into his apartment, and he gets spotted.
Patrick, you mean?
Yeah, Patrick. He's like snooping around the corner, like, what's going on? But yeah, so Jules reveals that it was a trash chute is how she was getting around without using the staircase, which I was very happy to hear because I finally write about something that she's using that trash chute to get around. But I was kind of like scared, I guess, thinking about how Patrick lives on level 22, which is in the up top, and then Danny, the ginger hacker, had told her that they're going to go down to 126, and so that's 104 floors that they need to climb down that skinny little tunnel on a metal rung ladder. I don't think I could do that.
That's crazy.
That is so scary.
It's some good cardio.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta have good grip strength too, right?
I think I was reading that like each floor is like 30 feet. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Then there's no gym in the silo either, so I don't know where she gets like all the upper body stuff. Remember when she like dangled from that rope and like she slid, and then like right before she hits the water, she's like dangling there forever, and then she like climbs all the way back up. Please, okay.
And like, she almost falls over the ledge. That
right?
time.
No.
Like how come you can climb up the rope but you can't lift yourself over the railing?
It was nice to know like how she was getting around. I think this is kind of answering the question of her stealth movements the last couple episodes, though. I know years ago when all the fans were writing their own stories, there were some different stories that suppose there was secondary staircases here and there or lift elevators or something. So, this at least answered something there.
They do seem to have secondary staircases, like, peppered around. Like, I think to get to the sheriff's department, you have to go through the cafeteria and climb some stairs to go up to the sheriff's department. And then there's that staircase that they go down to go to janitorial. So there must be like...
Yeah, they had the opportunity when they originally, like, whoever made the silo made it. So presumably they, like, haven't really changed the layout. So they could have been like, oh yeah, everything in mechanical also kind of maybe has, like, extra staircases to help or whatever.
It's almost like the levels don't equate to a building as we would think a high-rise, and more, each floor is sort of a mini condo in itself.
All right, so and then they move us up to the sheriff's department, and this is the part of the episode where Sims kind of like starts teleporting around. He was in janitorial, then all of a sudden he's up in the sheriff's office, which is 20 floors away. What happened? He got an email, right, or a silo mail from somebody, from that Jean lady, ratting out on her former teacher and her hero. Jeez, the people who just tell on other people, right? It kind of seemed like she was a fan of his. She just goes straight to Sims. But yeah, so he goes up there and he confronts him. He does like his chair stomping thing, and he's like really angry with Paul. I mean, he clearly holds a grudge, right? Yeah. He's mad at Sims for letting Juliet arrest him. And I guess because he was there helping her too, right? So, but then he reveals that he knows about Billings' condition, that he has a syndrome. So what do you all think is the extent of his exemption? Because obviously it comes with a catch, right?
Yeah, we don't see anything that really happens. Like they don't talk at all in front of us. Like there's nothing shown. So, I mean, my impression was that he either agreed to something or it didn't really seem like he gave him some information, but more that he agreed in the future to X, Y, and Z. And
yeah, my impression was it was sort of like Sims being like, you get this. It's like kind of like a stay for now.
Insofar as
insofar as you go along with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they were trying to win him over to like what they were doing to Juliet, because they don't know what Juliet's going to tell him, right? Because she had already told him on the stairs that she didn't say she wanted to go outside, and so I think they probably anticipate that he's going to believe her and he's going to kick up a fuss on her behalf and say something. So they need to basically lock his voice down, right? And the fact that he could lose his job is pretty heavy leverage on him. So I felt bad for him.
I do think he's one of the more interesting characters in that he doesn't have an agenda. He just seems to sincerely want to do the right thing. Yeah. And he's caught between this oppressive system that's designed to, stack the odds in the favor of authority.
That he's been fully on board with up to this point,
Yeah, but he does seem to be, like he'll question Jules on it, but he won't hold her to things. He does seem more pragmatic and trying to find the subtleties and the nuance in it all. It's the old adage, laws are hard and fast, but you need some flexibility. Does a cop stop you at 61 miles an hour in a 60 zone? You know what I mean? There's always a little bit of leeway. And he seems to be trying to apply that logic and wanting to do the right thing and just not knowing what the right thing is.
Yeah. So they cut back down to Jules and Patrick and Danny, and they finally get the hub working, and they push the video to, we think it's the janitorial monitors, but I think, so today during the AMA, Hugh, I think, says that they did get it to other people in the silo. I'd have to go
Really?
back and look.
And I wish
Yeah,
they
but
had shown that. Like they
I
didn't
didn't
get that
really
impression
cut
at all.
around. Yeah, they kind of
yeah,
cut right to IT there and showed it, but they didn't really show, like, say, random people seeing it on screens in
yeah,
their houses or
It's so
whatever.
Yeah.
weird because later in the episode, they specifically say that everything's like super calm
Yeah.
and that he even says it's like
Yeah.
as calm as it was before Holston's cleaning or something. I don't know, like that. And
Although at the same time, I mean, a lot of people probably wouldn't have been staring at a computer screen at that exact moment, right?
Sure.
I
Yeah, I
would
mean,
think like the biggest problem would be like the people in IT, because they're probably looking at computers, right?
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like computers are kind of like useless for the average citizen for the most part, so I don't think many of them are like staring at them on any given day.
But it
Yeah,
wasn't on like the main screens, like on each level, right? Like the sensor
I think
screens.
those are just the camera sensor, like the outside one. It seems like that's just like a direct feed.
That glitch that happened that earlier just made me think like maybe, but I think that would have caused like some sort of commotion in the silo.
yeah. I actually thought that at the end of last episode, I kind of thought that they were gonna get it out to some people, and that this was gonna be like a start of like something big, but I guess they're saving that for season 2.
Yeah, I think that could be a nice thing for season 2, where they show a flashback where somebody saw it, and all of a sudden that character has an arc in season 2.
Yeah, they're leaving themselves open for it.
Yeah. What they saw from the cleaning with Juliet was probably enough to cause enough like commotion for
Oh yeah,
a long time.
for sure.
But yeah, so they play it. We get to watch the monitors seeing the video, and they're just enraptured, right? They're like looking up at it like in wonder. And here's I think a lot of people really like this scene because he's just like, shut your eyes, turn around, cover your faces. He just treats
That
them
was
like
so
little
funny.
children. And then
And
he's
it's
like,
weird that he said it to Sims too.
yeah.
Yeah, it makes it pretty clear that there's some stuff that Sims isn't quite. He's not filled in on everything. I think there's like a couple
Because
times
I mean,
where we're like,
he's made it clear that Sims is not his shadow yet, so, and that he doesn't have a shadow. But like, I was talking in Discord with some other people, and it just seems very irresponsible of Bernard, given what his position is, to not have a successor in place. Because he looks like he's in his 60s or 70s. Anything could happen to him, right?
This was actually something that bothered me about the entire series, was that like there weren't more people with shadows, or at least even multiple shadows. I was
Yeah.
like, wait, why doesn't the sheriff have a shadow? Why do we elect someone? Why doesn't the mayor have a shadow? Why doesn't Knox have more than one shadow? Like, what? It's kind of like these single points of failure that don't seem like they jive very well with kind of the like trying to keep the silo going.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, even in mechanical, right? I mean, accidents happen, right? I mean, especially in their kind of department, and we think that they always have to have.
And really, in every department, if I think of like Jules just dying randomly or anyone like that, knowledge hasn't been passed down at all. Like nobody else can fix the generator. Nobody else, So I think.
Although if you've worked in IT, that's surprisingly uncommon.
Okay.
Every management team will talk about succession planning and avoiding single points of failure and stuff like this.
The bus
And
factor.
and yet everywhere I've worked, there's always been 3 or 4 linchpin people where if they're sick or they leave, everyone's screwed. We even saw it with Twitter with Elon Musk, where he was firing people, and they were the only ones that knew how the whole thing worked. So there's kind of maybe some real world coming in there where there's an ideal, but it's seldom realized.
The redheaded hacker, I did see on Hugh's AMA earlier that he thought that they should have named him Scotty.
Yeah,
and he
I
was
saw that
surprised
too.
they
I would
didn't.
have liked that.
Scotty, why Scotty?
Scotty is a character who was cut. He was
Mm.
a friend of Jules in IT, and I think that they merged him with George. He basically became George. Yeah, I would have liked it if like they had. I mean, because it's just one
Little
quick
Easter
mention,
egg.
right? He only yells his name like "Daddy, no!" It was like if that had been Scotty, that
Yeah.
would have been a nice
Yeah.
little book nod.
Yeah.
Okay, so the shoot scene after they part ways is something that was weirdly inconsistent and frustrating for me because the size of the shoot keeps changing when they cut through the scene. They show like Deputy Karen's shouting down at her, and Jules is like, she looks like she's like half a floor away. And then at another point, she's like closer to her, and then I don't know, and then like when it was the three of them in there, it looked like they could like reach out and touch each other, and that's how like close it was. But when they throw that giant air conditioner thing inside,
Yeah.
it's
You
it's
can see how big
ginormous.
it is, actually. Mm-hmm.
It looks like a whole other silo almost. It's just like banging around, hitting the sides, and
Mm-hmm.
ricocheting everywhere.
Which would
So
be
yeah,
so loud in a silo like that. It makes me crazy. As someone
yeah.
with misophonia, like the thought of like having an apartment next to this trash thing where they're just like throwing air conditioners down and like banging off the wall. It's crazy.
It might be a class thing within the silo. If
I know.
you're lower class, you're up against the
Maybe it just
waste
gets
disposal.
like it's like this at the top. I'm on video, so I'm trying to show you. Maybe it's wider at the top where the rich people live, and then it just like gets narrow and narrower.
It's like a
So it
funnel.
just bangs. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so she had to fall really far because they were on 126 and she fell down to mechanical, which is 144. So she had to fall. My mental math is so bad.
Hopefully, someone got rid of a mattress earlier.
20 odd floors at
18-ish.
least.
Yeah, 20-ish floors because I mean she's climbing down some, so she gets through some of them, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Onto
that
hard metal at the
uh,
bottom on top of
yeah.
everything else that had fallen, and then
Not quite
hoping
buying
someone was going to drag her
it.
away quickly enough.
Although the people at the bottom clearing things away, they would have heard all this. They would have heard the shouting and yelling. That would have been a bit
Yeah.
of intrigue.
That's
They might
true.
have sort of snuck a glance. One of them might have, you do wonder, like the whole point of recycling is to get things recycled, right? So if you're dropping something 100 stories and it's hitting a hard surface, there's not going to be much left to recycle. So they might be like, trampoline sort of things, because it sort of, it had some give when she landed. And even in the earlier episodes when we saw them clearing things away, there was a bit of give when things were landing.
And it's like a fair point, actually, because like if people are tossing like random things down this, I mean, there must be some give at the bottom in order for anyone to be or anything to be recyclable at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it would just be mush.
That makes me think that they must have like areas where that tunnel stops, and it's got like a section where it stops off because I think they have recycling centers on
Like
various
sorting.
every yeah like you say like every 20 levels. So like you wouldn't throw something down from level 1 and it falls all the way
Right.
to 144 because that seems really dangerous.
No, you can
And
only commit suicide that way, right?
yes, ouch. But yeah, so and then I was so disappointed that Patrick and Danny got apprehended so quickly. They were like, yeah, we got 2 guys here. It's like, oh,
I know.
their lives are
I was
over.
rooting for Patrick. I didn't really care so much about Danny, but
Yeah.
When they went in different directions from Jules, I thought they're definitely
yeah,
going
I know,
to
right?
I mean, I would have given Patrick better odds than Danny because I don't think Danny was lying that he worked in IT. So I think he's just a computer guy. So, but Patrick is more like a black market kind of, sly kind of guy. But I guess even it's probably because he stopped to ask her for the watch.
That's right.
That's what happens when you get greedy.
I loved her reaction there. Just like, seriously?
That was my reaction too. I was like, come on, man. Okay, so then they play the intro and then they take us straight into Walker's apartment where they're like patching up Jules. She's like all bloody and like they're like putting
As she would be.
yeah. And then Knox comes in and he makes himself even worse, right? I mean, I was already mad at him for just standing around gripping railings and when they were fixing the most
Yeah, you've been
important
mad
thing
at
in
him
the
for a
silo.
while. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then he just disappeared and I thought he'll come back eventually and he'll make up for it. But nope. He just turns Jules in.
And I know we don't want to talk about the book too much, but I found him to be way more likable in the book. I was like kind of disappointed in how unlikable he was throughout the series, at least what I found him to be.
One sort of thing that I did find plausible is that people in positions of power within the silo are compromised. So Jules' dad is compromised, Knox is compromised. They're sort of trapped in that middle management layer where they're trying to keep the likes of Bernard happy, but also trying to be pragmatic and keep the inner workings of the silo going. And they're caught between a rock and a hard place. And that was, I think, the frustration that Knox was acting out of.
So what do you guys make of Sims? He stomps into the room and he starts thumping his chest and yelling at Juliet and demanding Martha leave the room.
He's just been like this since his family was threatened. I feel like that was really personal for him. So
Yeah, that's what I got. I got kind of like he snapped after the whole family thing.
There's been a few times where where Sims and Bernard have been in one of these power positions, and then Bernard has sort of dismissed Sims and sort of, put him in his place. And it was sort of another one of those.
He would often take Juliet's side. It felt like he was just trying to endear himself to Juliet on purpose to, kind of keep up his, I'm the good guy kind of thing.
The hero of his own story.
Yeah. Because I think there was one time where Sims has everybody leave the room and it's just him and Bernard, and like Bernard tries to give Jules an excuse for what she did or something like that. Yeah. So he seems very calm and collective, very different from how Sims is. So, and then he goes and takes a hammer to the hard drive. But it was funny because he operates on he like keeps up the whole belief that Jules has. He doesn't make any attempt to tell her, that's just a fake video or anything like that. He just lets her think that it's actually real, right? I thought that was interesting because you would think that he could have easily just been like, "Oh, don't believe everything you see. That's just fiction." Although I don't know if they even know what fiction is.
They have Romeo and Juliet.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. But it was written by a rebel.
Yeah, right.
They don't perform it anymore. So yeah, maybe
it's garbage.
Maybe they ban books and plays and things. But yeah, then he uses her friends as leverage to get her to surrender quietly and allow herself to be shackled and do the long walk up. And
if she doesn't say that she didn't say that she wants to go outside, like that,
he wants her to waive her right to a hearing too. So, and
not that a hearing would have done anything,
right?
Really.
Yeah,
a hearing with who?
Judge Meadows.
Judge Meadows is very busy.
It is consistent with his motivation, though, that his concern is the greater good of the silo and keeping peace, and so he wants her to be seen as submissive and not resisting, so that it plays into that narrative that he wants to keep the silo calm, and that this is all just routine rather than him struggling to prevent a rebellion.
So I was actually really concerned for Martha in this scene because, like Jules told Sim, she can't leave because she's too scared of leaving, and
she's basically saying, like, she's not a threat. You don't have to do anything. Like, please. Because, like, the worst thing for Martha, I feel, is that if they dragged her out of the apartment in some manner or, like, made her go to the mines or, for her, that would be the worst sort of punishment imaginable, really.
She was, like, willing to do that, though, because she was shaking her head there at Juliet, being like, don't buy into this.
Yeah.
It was really brave.
She is very brave, I think.
I think that Bernard probably already knew, like, who she was, Walker, that, when they came down to her place, he probably had an idea that she hadn't left there for a long time. And so when Jules says she's not a threat, he knew, she's not going anywhere.
So Shirley comes in and she throws in this line that becomes important later, is that she wishes that, the tape gate had never happened because that's what first got her like on their bad side in IT.
Right.
But Shirley saying that helps Martha figure out the tape, right? She goes and she grabs her tape and she realizes that, she's got to go. And I think that's probably why they put this relationship into the story, because I think Martha feels like whatever bad, because in that, I think it was episode 2 or 3, they established that something happened between her and her ex, right?
Mm-hmm. And we all thought it was Judge Meadows in the picture.
Yeah.
Which when they show her in this episode, I still think there's like a very uncanny resemblance.
Yeah. I mean, I went back and I looked and I was like, that totally looks like it could be her.
Yeah.
But Hugh set us straight on a podcast episode. That was another spoiler he gave us. He was like, no, that's not her. We'll see her later. And I was like, oh, okay.
Okay. And here we are.
Okay, so Jules just walk back up to the top, and there was the water scene, and people were like harping on that, like, what does that mean? But I think it was just she's thirsty because she's walking up 144 floors.
Yeah. I don't know, but I guess you always think there's reasons to keep things like that in. And I definitely got the impression that Bernard was, it did seem like he was being sensitive, but I think it was a show for like the people of the silo. Like, I'm willing to give this person water. Look what a humanitarian I am, you know?
One of the things in the book is you really get a sense of the size of the silo from the fatigue that people have,
Yeah.
and particularly as they approach the top, their pace slows,
Exhausted,
they're weary, they're sort of walking well-worn paths on the floor and all this sort of stuff. And one of the challenges, I think, for the show is trying to capture that because, a lot of times everyone's just so sprightly, like you say, Sims is on 20 floors down and all of a sudden he's confronting Paul in the sheriff's office and he's not out of breath or anything. And so I think that stopping on the stairs was to, try to convey that because, they're trying to show 140 odd floors passing. And yet we only, for a practical reason, we only see them walking around the spiral staircase a few times because, watching 144 floors go past would be rather boring TV. So I liked the water. I thought that was, a touch of realism.
It was funny too because just before the finale had come out, Rebecca had done, I think, press for Dead Reckoning, the Mission Impossible movie, and she told, I think, Collider that they asked her, "Oh, can you share anything about the finale?" And she's like, "Oh, it's gonna get wet." And people were like, "What? What does that mean?
It's gonna get wet?"
Yeah. Or wetter or something. She said something about getting wet or getting wetter. And so like everybody's like, oh my God, she's going to go back to that. She's going to go back into the water and they're going to find the door. And so everybody's like freaking out over that. And then when the finale came out, people were like, oh, maybe she just meant she spills water all over herself.
That might have been a slip of the tongue spoiler about season 2.
Yeah. I think Hugh answered that question on Reddit. He said, I think she meant season 2.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure. So then Martha begins her walk outside. She makes it to the door. She opens it, and I really like this scene because they had really. I thought they had built it up to this really nicely. That she's so comfortable in her own space, and even going to the door to go call out for somebody was a lot for her. So. And she's like, come on, you old fool. You're all she's got. And
I think it really helps to show that, like, I know we get that note later that says, that she loves her or whatever. But I think she truly does, like, really love Juliet. And I think that shows a lot. Because, like, that's hard for someone. Like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that people can even be agoraphobic inside the confines of this close space.
Oh, the most amazing place you could ever live if you're a hermit. Yeah.
And she lives at the very bottom too, right?
Yeah.
She lives on 144. Yeah, so she not only makes it out, but she climbs, I think, 20-something floors because that's where Carla lives, her ex. And Carla has dogs. She has
Love Carla.
It sounds like she has small dogs, right?
Little scrappy doo-doo barkies. Like, you knock on the door, it's like, like that's, oh, my mom's dogs do that. My grandma's dogs do that.
Yeah, I have a little dog who sounds like that too. It's funny how you can tell what kind of dog they have, right? Just by the door. It's not like a woo 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 woo. Nope. Then you can tell they have a big dog.
Yeah.
But oh my God, that must mean that the cats and the dogs are the same size in the silo.
Well, I have big dogs and I knew how much you have to run them to keep them well exercised. So like big dogs just wouldn't work.
And space, I have been continually impressed by how much space various people have in the silo throughout this series. Like I pictured it as everyone having a lot smaller and like less space. And whenever I see people's apartments in this series, I'm like, why do they have so much space?
Yeah. I just like filming stuff like that, like
it's for the camera crew.
In the room. Yeah, exactly. Like it's so hard to show like those small spots when you got like so much people to shove in.
Yeah, so I thought the scene with Carla was actually written very heavy-handedly, because she just shows up and she's like, "Is this about Nichols? Is this about that tape?" It's like, "Oh my God, nobody mentioned any tape. What are you talking?"
What tape?
Yeah, I expected her to be
Yes.
more surprised to see Shirley and to sort of, perhaps realize the gravitas of what it took for her to get there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
she didn't seem
interesting.
to say anything.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so hard to imagine like what their relationship is like why they split, like how long she's been down there, Martha. You don't really get any hints of that whatsoever. It goes straight to the tape.
I think this series in general has suffered a tiny bit from uneven pacing, so it may simply have just been the finale and them trying to segue like the
Yeah,
best
yeah.
possible way they could into kind of getting through the scene.
One thing I have wondered about since the advent of streaming is why these companies like Apple and Netflix and that are still slavish around the length. Like, you look at the
Yeah,
silo ones, they're all 44, 46 minutes long, which is the old format when you had to include ad
Commercials,
commercials.
breaks.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. If episode one needs to be, 62 minutes, episode two, 54,
I feel like they
episode
are
three,
doing that with some
120, just,
shows.
Yeah,
Some
Stranger
shows
Things
do
comes to
just
mind.
do whatever the hell they want. I don't know. Yeah.
Stranger Things releases movie-length episodes.
Apple is very rigid
Oh, for
though. Like
sure.
I watch a
Good
lot of
Apple.
Apple shows and they all like kind of once they kind of nail down a length for the episodes, they kind of stick to it.
right. Well, I was wondering if that might play on the pacing, because the editors have got to fit to that time frame and so they've got
Yeah,
to sort of, pick and choose what they're going to put in to hit the length.
I mean,
Whereas you don't actually need to hit any length. You can
yeah.
you can just hit the length you need for the episode.
I mean, I know a bunch of us in Discord, we were really surprised when we saw the runtime for the finale because we thought, oh, I mean, the episode at the start was long and we kind of
Mhm.
expected the last one to be long too.
Mhm.
And I felt like it could have been stretched out
Yeah,
in
yeah.
small ways, and I would imagine that they actually filmed it because it kind of felt like there were pieces missing and they just got cut out. So, yeah, I don't know what goes into the editing process. So, I did find it interesting that they put the entire first episode on Twitter this past week. I mean,
Yeah.
wow. I mean,
I
that
liked
was
it a lot.
impressive.
So just fuck it. Just put
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Because, I mean, that was the one that had everyone asking so many questions, right? So I can imagine seeing just one episode drew a lot of people in. So,
Yeah, I think they do that on Apple too. I believe a lot of the times Apple TV Plus makes their first episode free.
uh,
I think that's how I started watching Servant on Apple TV. It was like Rupert Grint, and there was one episode that I was allowed to watch. And
that I watched the first episode of Yellow Jackets on Prime, and then I thought, oh my God, you mean the whole season's not on here? So I was
yeah,
kind of
Yeah.
bummed about that. But yeah, that's on my to-do list. I gotta get to Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets is amazing, as is Servant.
Yeah, the first episode really drew me in, so yeah, I gotta get to that one. But yeah, so getting back to it, so they stop Jules at 20 and they take her to the closet, and it was kind of chilling for me because I never imagined her standing in that room. Like when they first, from the time that they first revealed it, they kept taking us back there, and I just kind of, it just had like this.
it was powerful for me because I have really noticed the color changing in that room. It's very
It's
blue, and everything in
blue,
the silo
yeah,
is so like sepia toned. So her
yeah.
standing in that room was a little, and I don't know if they meant it to be like that. Maybe.
I think
I
they
s
definitely did. Like it looks so high tech.
Yeah, yeah. And they're always there. I'm convinced they're like robots or clones or like like weird.
They're all twins.
They're just like always sitting there. Like it's so dull. What do they
I feel
do all
like I feel
day?
like there
Just
must be
watch what?
another room across the hall or something, and that's where all the monitors live.
Well,
And
there's
they
like
never didn't.
coffee. But like if it's all recorded and they can just go back, then what's the point of everyone just sitting there all the time? Like what are they looking for?
There are like a million cameras.
Yeah, if you think about the size of the silo, there's got to be just thousands, if not tens of thousands of cameras. And so they'd just be watching like the major walkways
Well, I
or the
think
major
that's
sort of
the thing I'm
intersections.
not quite clear on because like they were talking about like switching out cameras and how some places were dead zones. So it seems like there's this like finite number of
Finite
cameras
amount.
that they are like kind of moving around everywhere, and then when they're dead or something. I don't know. I mean, there can't be cameras everywhere because there must be people. I mean, they have this whole black market. There's an entire they must have specific
Yeah, because I mean, the nursery doesn't have anything, and then they come to like put one in, right? So
Yeah, and there clearly can't be a camera in every apartment or every.
yeah,
That's too
It'd be
much.
hard to get spare parts as well for sort of broken cameras. And
Or pretend like they're all like air sensors or whatever,
Yeah.
but holy cow, going back to the shoot, they sure dump a lot of things,
Garbage,
right?
right?
It didn't even look like garbage. It looked like, things that like they could melt down and use, right? I was just wondering why,
It's probably
like
for
does that
effects.
is that for recycling to harvest or yeah,
I
I don't
do
know.
want to know what they're doing with all of it. I also want to know where they're getting all of this stuff. Like, yeah, it would be really hard to fix cameras, right? Or keep hard drives going or all sorts of other things that sort of the show kind of makes us think maybe have been working for like decades and decades or even a century or more, but like wouldn't.
Yeah.
I think we're diving too deep on.
Yep.
We were talking about septic earlier with you, so it's like, please tell me how this works or how it doesn't.
Like giant septic tank in leach field.
Ew.
Getting back to the camera room, it did feel a lot to me in some level like villain monologuing when he brought her in there, because he knows she's not going to tell anybody or else her friends are going
Yeah.
to get it. And she looks at all the cameras and she says, "We didn't have a chance, did we?" And yeah. So a little bit of that before I saw the video of George.
Yeah, it's kind of like how somebody on death row, they let you have like your choice of like your last meal and things like that. Like, it's almost like he's doing that for her. Like he's like giving her all these things because he knows she's gonna die soon, so he's
And I
not
think
really
I think
worried
it would
about
be
it, right?
very cathartic for someone who has to keep all these secrets to have
Yeah,
someone where he can just be
yeah,
like, "Here are all my secrets, and
yeah,
you're gonna die." So I'm, it's like a confessional kind of like
yeah,
there's no risk and
I get that, but I almost kind of thought he was like doing it like for himself, like kind of to prove to her that like he hadn't done anything wrong.
oh
Like
yeah,
this thing
showing her
you've been
the video.
chasing, yeah, is like George, like, yeah,
mm,
this is like I am clearing IT's name or clearing
Right,
like leadership's name.
right, yeah,
yeah.
definitely,
and,
definitely.
It
and
wasn't
it sort of
murder.
undermines. Yeah, it undermines everything that she's been doing. So her
Yeah,
whole motivation has been to investigate this murder, and he's now showing her that look, there
Yeah.
was never a murder to begin with.
It's another gut punch
Um,
for her. Like everything, she's about to go outside and clean, and the whole purpose of all of this was that she wanted to understand what happened to George because she was so convinced that he had been murdered. And to find
yeah.
out that he wasn't murdered, like an hour before she's sent outside, is just like
I know.
imagine.
And it all works too, right? Because her emotional
hmm
reaction, she's like shaking and crying, and
hmm
she's just and he's watching it all happen, right, to her. He's
I
like
think he's
staring
kind
at
of
her.
into it.
Yeah,
And although it's suicide, it's sort of forced suicide. Like
yeah,
he's realizing that if he doesn't do this, the hard drive is going to fall into
yeah,
Bernard's hands, and everything's going to come grinding to a halt. So he's trying to keep the sort of the sparks of the resistance alive by giving up
yeah,
his own life, and knowing that he's going to die anyway. So it's a choice. Die outside or die protecting the hard drive and giving other people a chance. So it's
hmm
sort of a conflicted suicide rather than
yeah.
and he's driven to it.
And plus, it sounds like he like asked himself, will I be able to withstand torture, and do I want to go through that? And he seems to like not have enough confidence in himself that he won't give up. All these people who helped him and people who know things and stuff like that. So yeah, he just does it to protect them, right? So, and I think a lot of us wonder at some point, right, about that. Like, if I had to keep a secret and somebody really wanted it from me, would I be able to keep it, right?
No, I absolutely would not. I would be like the first person who would blow
Yeah,
up
same.
everything.
I would
Yeah,
Like
me
break.
too.
if
I
you
would
pinched
break
me with
too.
like tweezers, I'd be like, okay, okay, fine.
And I think everyone would break, right? I mean, that's one of
That's
the
the purpose of
whole
torture.
things that,
Yeah.
yeah, the idea that we see a lot of times in movies of people, being strong to the very end is a bit of a myth.
Okay, so that after that they move the episode to Jules up top, and she's already in holding three, and they're measuring her for her cleaning suit. So that tells me that they custom make each suit, because we talked about how there's a closet with all the helmets,
Right.
right? So like they must have different sizes because people have different. I have a big
Yeah,
head.
different
So,
sizes for helmets, I guess. I guess different sizes for the suits as well. It's nice to have
yeah.
like
They're all
multiple.
a snug fit.
Yeah, I was thinking this when watching this past episode, and I was like, what a waste of like nice helmets and nice suits. They just like send them out there and like they can never retrieve them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
One thing I liked, they haven't really emphasized this in the show, but it's a big deal in the book, and that is the whole way the airlock sort of works. That you go into a staging area, it's blasted with the hot air, and then you move on. And if you don't move on in the book, you get scorched with fire, so you get killed in the airlock.
Also, like motivating them to like go.
Yeah, it sort of prods you to keep going, sort of thing. It's something and I understand they can't cover every detail in the series, but it's a nice part of the book.
Yeah, they do have the fire. They
Oh, okay.
didn't say it. Yeah,
Like
it
a
was.
brief.
I think they show it during Allison's cleaning when Holston is staring out the window, watching her go out. They show like the flames come up after she goes out the first
Right.
door.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to have something because what would keep people like you could just like hang out in the airlock. Definitely, like not
Yeah,
going
come on, go out
outside,
there.
like not going back in.
But yeah, I don't think they go over the procedure. I don't think they tell
No.
her, that if you don't get out of here in like a certain amount of time or anything like that. So, but yeah, it is there. It's in the show. It's easy to miss though. So Jules starts getting her people coming to say goodbye, and Sims is talking to Bernard, and Bernard tells him that he's going to revisit him becoming his shadow. And I was confused by this because I thought that he had been showing himself to be even more unstable than before. And I thought that, he had told him, is it fair to your family, and are you going to choose them over the silo? And he had, I don't know, it sounded like, or it seemed to me like he was doing it even more. So I was confused as to why he changed his mind.
And it was
I
also kind of strange in that he said, we'll talk about this after the cleaning.
Yeah.
It was like, hang on, is it happening or not, sort of thing? Why does the cleaning sort of come into it? But he seemed to be wanting to see that be successful first before committing.
I think he probably had seen the situation spiral so far out of control over the last couple weeks that it seemed like more and more people knew things, and he's like, okay, I can't let anybody else know the inside secrets, and this guy's already so committed, that whole sunk cost fallacy thing, and like, I
Right.
may not want this guy to be my shadow, but I may not have a choice at this point.
Yeah.
And he's going to be ruthless enough to pull it off.
When you got to choose between Sims and Diego, Sims doesn't look so bad. Oh, Diego. So her dad comes to visit her first. He brings her food. And I thought this scene was so sad because she couldn't tell him. He outright asks her, "Why are you going outside?" So she has to keep up the impression that she wants to die, and she can't say
I thought
anything.
he would be more distraught than he was. He seemed to be quite calm.
I mean, it looked like he seems kind of like the internal kind of pain kind of guy. So I could see it in his face that he was really confused and really hurt, and he just didn't understand. But yeah, she changes the subject, right? She's like, "This is really good," right? So
Yeah,
she doesn't want to talk about it because she can't talk about it, but she
like she
also
doesn't want to
doesn't want to.
lie. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
This relationship is probably my favorite addition to the show, that her father was, this plot device in the book that basically drove her down deep, and is, not really a part of her life other than, he's this really, standoffish person that doesn't value human connection at all. And here we get a lot more. We get the story of her mom, and it really, I think it paid off in this scene as well, that this this is the link to her past, and she can't tell him anything.
yeah. Because yeah, you're right. In the book, he was kind of cold, right?
Very.
Yeah, yeah. I really liked that they made up, and that and even though it was like really sad, I mean, at least they parted on pretty good terms. Like they seemed to like.
I felt that he did not seem upset, and I mean, I don't know what it's like to have like your daughter at 13 like go down deep and not see her again for a year. Whatever. He wasn't. I mean, obviously he's like hiding emotion and he's moved, but he doesn't seem.
I think it's just hard. Like there is still a ton of distance between them.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to
Yeah,
overcome that even at the end.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe. Yeah.
plus he knows what, like, she, even though he thinks she's chosen to go outside, she's probably scared, right? So maybe he wants to not make it any worse for her,
Maybe.
right?
I
So
just think like Jess, I mean, I know it was like it was different in the books and they didn't have this, reunion, but having just like got back into contact with your daughter and you've just now reformed your
mhm.
relationship for her to like be sent out to clean like immediately, I think that would be it would be very heavy. I just didn't feel like he.
Well, he had said before that he is the kind of guy who, when he's grieving, he turns inward, right? So maybe this is just how he
Yeah,
deals with
yeah, no,
things.
maybe
So
it's just like that's it for him. Like that's his daughter, his wife is dead.
yeah, when he's like watching her cleaning, he's a lot more emotional on his
Oh yeah,
face
yeah, yeah,
that
totally. And
at
he
that
gets, he's
time.
like proud.
Yeah.
He's like happy. I can see that then, but I don't know. I would have been sadder.
I think too. There's interesting parallels if you think about the history of stories like this and even
Mhm.
movies like this. If you think of something like 1984, where there's wall screens that watch everyone, and it's the same sort of sepia tone palette,
Mhm.
and the characters there are very much driven by conflict, by internal conflict, where they have to act outwardly one way, even though inwardly they feel very different. And so I think, sort of thinking back about his character and how he was with his wife, how he was with Juliet, before she sort of realized that he hadn't actually betrayed his wife, and then how he was in front of while she's waiting to go out to clean. He's sort of operating on two levels. The one where he wants to be fully open, but also just being aware that he's constantly being watched and assessed, and his position in his life is also under threat. So it's sort of the big brother.
Caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, sort of compromised, and it does remind me of things like the Stasi in East Germany, for example. Same sort of thing where people are betraying each other, family members are turning on each other. There's always suspicion. You don't know who you can trust, and they've definitely worked that undertone, that sort of 1984 undertone, into the story as well.
So I think this expansion of Pete is probably why they changed Walker to be a woman, because like Will had said in the book, he doesn't, he's cold, and they don't really make up, right? I don't think they do at all. Do they interact? I don't remember.
I don't think
Not
so.
much.
Yeah. So this is kind of like Jules gets her dad back, and she like kind of has a new mom in Martha. So it's like, she's about to go outside, and yet she's actually finally got, parents again. So it's kind of sad that it happens right before she's about to leave. So Juliet has a very sad story.
Yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, Kelly, we talked about in the past how, when Jules realizes what happened with her mom is because of the silo, and like what they prevented her from doing and what they took away from her, and
Mhm.
basically drove her to kill herself. So it's like she lost her brother, and then her mom, and then her dad, and so she lost everybody because of what the silo did, right? So they destroyed her whole family.
It's so weird though, because like I imagine like if you don't know anything else besides a silo, like where does that hit? Like if you
Yeah,
never had a life outside of it, it's just like your whole.
it's your whole
yeah.
world.
Yeah, it's hard. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Okay, so then the episode goes to Lucas in IT, and this is the last we see of him when he's getting
Hello,
sentenced.
Lucas.
He's getting sentenced to 10 years mining iron ore.
I think he's essentially getting sentenced to showing up again in season
I
two.
know. Like, see you next year, sir.
When we first saw Lucas, in like episode 2 or 3, I was excited. He was one of my favorite characters from the book, and I was like, great, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing with him. But he
Yeah,
has just been underutilized in the series, so
Yeah,
it'll
that
be
was
interesting to see what they do with him.
one of the biggest changes I feel like from the books is kind of what they're
Hmm.
doing, but I think they're pointing him down toward the water and the door and that sort of direction of like I don't
Mhm.
know what the mines are, but I imagine that whatever Lucas is doing involves going down deep, and I think that that's going to be like the direction of his story.
The mines are in the book, but they're quite strictly controlled. Like they can only dig in certain directions and follow certain veins. So like everything in their silos, there's sort of limited ability to do things. And certainly, we've already seen the big digger at the bottom of the silo. So you kind of wonder at what point do the mines branch off and where do they go? But they were quite heavily regulated in the book.
Sitting here talking about this, it makes me wonder if like Bernard even intends for him to serve actual 10 years, or is it because that just seems like a harsh sentence, right? I mean, or is he just telling him it's going to be 10 and then he like goes and checks on him in a year and is like, hey, so you want to come back and work in IT and be a little more obedient? Like parole, because 10 years of hard labor is ouch, especially for a computer guy.
Yeah, no joke. He hasn't done hard labor ever in his life.
I mean, what exactly did he do, right? I mean, Jules called him to his apartment and he went.
That was it, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's
Well,
brutal.
he didn't rat her out. Another thing about sort of authoritarian structures like this is the punishments are as much for other people to see as they are for the person, because then it keeps everyone else in line. So there might be an element of that as well.
Okay, so then they have this little scene of two people, presumably from supply, and they're carrying very ceremoniously a box of sensor wool and tape, and it's a lot of tape. I don't understand why they need so much tape, because I have a roll of duct tape that looks about that size, and it's taken us, we've had it for years. Granted, I don't have any suits to send people out to clean anything, but it just seems like a lot of tape, and I had to wonder if, like, Carla replaced all of them, or if it was just the one that Martha had, or
I'm trying to imagine a situation in which they would need so much tape, or even more than one like tray of tape. I felt like it was just another way to like draw attention to the tape and make us like realize what was going on, which I felt was just
I think this is another
stuff.
like don't read too much into it things.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly from the book, the tape is even used around the helmet. So that isn't in the TV show, but it's used quite extensively. The ankles, the waist is also taped up. We only really see the wrists, but
and
in the book,
the ankles, right?
Yeah, the books make it clear that it's used like a lot because they're basically like patching the suit together.
Yeah.
That's going to be the whole first episode of season 2 is Jules taking all the tape off.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Well, in the book, it's a big deal for her to actually get out of the suit later. Like she actually quite struggles with it. So, she has to find a knife and all sorts of things.
Well, I can imagine so. They're not really meant to get out of. So, nobody ever imagined.
I don't know if we want to go too far down this.
Yeah, probably not. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've read.
We're getting into spoiler
territory.
This
is like spoiler territory. The fact that she has to get out of a suit.
You mean she gets out of a suit?
Sorry, I drove us off the road.
Well, it's kind of obvious in some regards because there's bodily functions and all sorts of things. You got.
Well, there's really only in my opinion, like I was thinking, there's really only one thing that can happen. Like she goes to another camera and makes a scene, or someone goes out and gets her. Like at least from what I see of this show, there aren't like many options.
I mean, Kelly, you say that, except like we killed off like Holston and Allison in the first episode. So
I know, yeah.
I'm not going to say anything either way. I'm just saying the show obviously the stakes are real here.
I just like
what all we'll tell you, Kelly, is you're going to love season 2.
I can just see like in another silo 12, they're just like watching her feet walk by on the screen. She's like out there like wandering around.
She's like waving, hey,
like hello,
everybody.
Because like they saw her go over the edge, and that's all they saw. So like for that silo, everyone must just be like completely insane. And where's she gonna go? I don't know. That's where I'm at.
She's
we'll find out.
She's heading out, so obviously she'll run into another one of those cameras, right? Yeah.
I'm very curious. I'm excited. I'm excited to see.
I'm actually like wondering how much they're gonna reveal in the trailer, right? Because I mean, they can't hide much, right?
Right.
Unless they just focus on
But I
that.
mean, I think at some point, we realize what's going on. Like,
Yeah,
here's where we are. Here's what we got. This is what either has to happen or not. So,
yeah, that's true.
and then some trailers just give away the entire
Too
show.
much.
So
Yeah.
hopefully they don't do that.
If you want, I will be your spoiler guard, and I
Please
will watch
do.
it and tell you if it's okay.
Yeah, because I have already just I'm not reading the book. I'm not going to read it. Sorry, too. No.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying just watching it as I am, and this has been fun. So
Well, you can never get that blindness
yeah,
back, right?
right.
So
I
yeah,
will read them after.
that's actually why I let my son watch Ender's Game last night, because normally I would be like, no, you have to read the book first. But then I thought, well, I mean, he might just really enjoy the movie, and then he can go read it later and enjoy it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's always true.
All right. So to get us back on track, Shirley delivers Hush Puppies and Martha's note. And
So
the note
sweet.
was really sweet. She said, "You wanted the truth. The truth is, I love you." And then she says, "They're good in supply."
Mm-hmm.
And that was straight out of the book, word for word. So I really
Great.
like that.
Yes.
Yeah. When I heard it, I said, I was like, "Oh my god!" I love when they throw in little things like that.
Yeah, it was really sweet. I love
But
Martha.
yeah, I did think it was funny that like she was trying to hide the note from the camera, and then she just reads it out loud.
Yeah, it's like she realized it was sentimental, and then she was like, "They're good in supply shit." Like I don't think anyone else would have. Fuck, I don't know. I mean,
Well,
should they
I
have
mean,
that?
okay, so I don't think actually that Jules knew what that meant there.
I don't think so
Because
either.
yeah, because she
Yeah.
figures it outside. She like says again what they're good in supply.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
and
very
then she figures it
spoon-fed
out
to
outside.
us.
I think it was deliberately vague as written too, and if I recall in the book, they made a kind of a point of describing how deliberately vague the phrase was. So,
Like double the flowers in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
Was that in the book, by the way? Was that
Nope,
oh.
nope.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm still mad about that. Like that was sorry. Like you don't have to leave such vague notes. Like in real life, if there is a mystery or a crime and you're dying, you don't have to like what? That's so
They're
stupid.
watching you.
Yeah.
There's
There are cameras in your mirror. Anything else, literally anything else. Cover it up. Throw a blanket over your mirror.
It was very important for all the hush puppies to survive the trip, so Hank didn't make this one.
Yes.
Yes, that's a good point. Oh my
But
gosh.
she's not even hungry now. She doesn't want them. She just wants the note. So theoretically, Hank could have brought them up.
Yes, but we needed the hush puppies to hide the note.
But it's not even like
Is that
is it
an
illegal
American
to like
thing?
pass
Hush
on a
puppies?
note? Yes, it is. I am so when I grew up in Missouri and my family did a lot of freshwater fishing and we would always serve hush puppies with our fish. And I now live in Oregon, which is on the West Coast, and I had a really hard time even figuring out like how to get hush puppy stuff here.
What are
So
they?
it's
It's like
cornmeal, right?
it's cornmeal
Fried
breading.
cornbread.
And there's
Fried
onion
usually.
in it. Yeah, it's like deep fried in like a
So
grease.
it's savory.
Yeah, totally.
Here in Australia, hush puppies are a brand of shoe.
Shoe. It is here as well.
Well, we have that
you can
too.
get shoes here as well. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
savory
it's a savory.
corn.
It's a ball
fried.
about the size of like I don't know. You could wrap your hand around it. You serve it with fish
Okay.
traditionally.
Yeah,
Often
it's
fish.
actually Native American in origin.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, I love hush puppies.
I'm gonna have to try to find some. I don't think I've ever had one.
My
Although
mom sent me a package for the last holiday, like the Christmas, and she included like 3 bags of hush puppy
that's
stuff
funny.
because
Batter.
because you can't find it here.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, they do look like this Hawaii or this dessert in Hawaii called andagi, which is like a donut. It's like a deep fried donut. It looks just like that. So that's why I asked if it was savory, because the one that we have here is sweet. So
Yeah, it's
and then okay, so Paul tells Kat about his exemption, and me and Kelly were talking about this, but we used to like Paul's wife, but we don't now. She's kind of annoying.
She does weird things. Like she did this weird smirk when he told her that they learned about his exemption or they learned that he had the syndrome.
That he knew that he had the syndrome, not the
Yeah.
exemption.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yes. When she kind of smiled, and I know that she wants that to happen so he doesn't have to like lie and hide anymore.
But she knows how much he doesn't want that, right? So
I would like her. Sorry.
yeah, she has fallen out of
In
favor.
my estimation, yes.
Plus, like, like her first thing to ask was, "Oh my God, do we have to move?"
Yeah.
It's like, hello, your husband has just told you that maybe he like is gonna lose his job and like he's gonna have to tell everybody his worst fear. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, like that's a weird thing to go to. Like it wasn't for her husband's safety, it wasn't for her own safety or her child's safety. It
yeah,
was
it was
like something like
her social
weirdly
standing.
like superficial.
Yeah, that's probably why. All right, so next is Bernard's visit, which I really like this whole sequence that of his visit with her. It starts with like they show us a little bit of subservient Paul under his new exemption, and he behaves very differently. His shoulders are hunched, and he looks sick, right?
It's almost like he is like intentionally just keeping everything to himself, and he doesn't agree with any of this, and he doesn't really understand it, but he's made a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean he basically sold out, right? So
mhm,
yeah, but you can see it on his face that he just
mhm,
feels guilty about it, right? I mean, he's supposed to be the rules guy, but he's allowing this thing to be given to him because he wants to break this one big rule.
mhm.
So
I mean, I don't blame him. Like sometimes it's about like, helping yourself and helping your family and
Sometimes that's all
it
you
could
can do. Yeah.
it could even be as much as like, "Oh, I'm gonna stay quiet for now while I think up like a better plan in the future." Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
get over the heavy ground like lightly.
Yeah.
so this goes back to more about what we were talking about, how Bernard is comfortable talking to Jules because he's confident that she's gonna die, so he can say whatever he wants to her,
It's a
and he admits.
confessional.
Yeah, he admits that he thinks about quitting at least once a day, and he tells Jules that she was an accident, right? That her
Ouch.
parents weren't supposed to have children. Gloria had said that she was always surprised to hear that Hannah, even though she wasn't technically a flamekeeper, she was a curious sort, right? So
Hmm.
she was saying that she was surprised that she was allowed to have children, and so I guess it turns out that, it was an accident. So that just brings us back to like what we were speculating about before, Kelly, is like, did they were both doctors, right? So
Hmm.
did they know, like, did he know, and was she able to like, did she do it to herself or did he
I mean,
do
it's
it,
so hard to tell. Like, I feel like doctors know what birth control is or what it means or like how you prevent birth. So it seems unlikely they could just like get away with hiding that from two people who.
are
But
in the medical field?
I don't know. I don't know what the medical field means living in this silo. If it's very
It, yeah, it almost needs accident in air quotes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, two accidents seems highly
Yeah.
unlikely.
I mean, I've thought for a while that maybe, something happened to Jacob, like they did something to him, not just that he was sick,
Hmm.
but something happened to him that they like were like, well, I don't know what else she was doing, if she was doing other things that was pissing off Judicial, and that was just a little too much, and they, although that gets a little dark, so
Yeah, I don't know. It
I
gets weird when you think about like her experimenting with the rabbit and like he had a heart condition. Like they couldn't have caught. I don't know. It's just there's just a lot, and I have just sort of decided that it doesn't really matter. Maybe it does. I don't know.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah,
want to be
I
more.
just kind of took it at face value and was like, yeah, let's stay in the present, so to speak, with like the
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So he tells Jules that you've been of great service to the silo. And I love the line that she throws back at him. I don't want to be of great service anymore. It's just like she's accepted her fate, right?
Mhm.
Right.
But I was a little confused as to what she thinks is going to be out there, because she is one of only two people who's gone to clean, who thinks they know what it's like outside.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Does she think that it's green but still poisonous, or
I think maybe after seeing that George killed himself. I think she's sort of just like fuck it, if I may say
yeah,
that. It's like I don't care. Like I'm gonna see what it's like out there, and then I'll know, and then whatever happens, happens. I mean, she doesn't really have like a lot. Like her dad, she still has her dad, but that's so new. She's probably
yeah,
just like, God, I don't know. Like imagine she knows that everyone who's gone out to clean has never come back, and she knows that's
hmm,
gonna happen to her, and
Yeah, she knows there's some reason that the people out there die. Like, do
yeah,
see them die, or at least she thinks she sees them die. So I
yeah,
guess maybe she thinks that might be a lie too.
Well, their bodies are strewn on the on the
yeah.
on
hillside,
the
But if
right?
she
hill,
It's
thinks
yeah.
just
this, but if
yeah.
she thinks the sensor feed is a lie, she might think that whatever she's being shown is a lie too, right?
I mean, she might think that they climb over that hill and then they're captured by some other like entity, and like they're prevented from returning. But either way,
Yeah.
she probably thinks that she's just not coming back, right?
Yeah, I'm with Kelly. Like, I just think she, at this point, she's kind of like, I did what I did, and I'm in the bed that I made, and I just have to see what happens.
Yeah.
I also really liked when he compares the two of them and he sees the parallels between them. He like tells her, it's just like what he does is what she does with the generator, and that if something goes wrong, then boom, it can all go bad, right?
I think there's a lot of respect that he has for her in a weird way. Like, he's
Mm.
like, I've done this job for probably decades at this point, and within just a couple weeks, this person that was living
Yeah.
on the bottom of the silo has given me a run for my money.
Mm.
And, like, he didn't may not wanted the excitement, but it's like, hey, wow, this is,
Yeah.
something. And I think in some ways he's probably a little sad to see her go, because now the Tom and Jerry hunt is over. I've caught the mouse. Like, what's
Mm.
next?
Yeah, for me,
And
it's weird because I didn't know Bernard from the books, and I didn't know that this twist was coming. So like my view of Bernard, just from the show, like there were parts in this episode that I felt didn't redeem him, but I was like, okay, and I don't know if he's looking out for the good of the silo, if he's looking out for the good of humanity, if he's looking out for the good of himself. I don't know that at this point, so I think it's very interesting to like look at it like from that perspective.
Yeah, you definitely see that he is misplaced. Like he really thinks he's doing the right thing,
Yeah.
and that the end justifies
Yeah.
the means. But
Yeah.
He's the hero of his story.
Yeah, but like you guys even saying that, like as someone who has not read the books, I'm like, oh, okay, well, obviously, so it's just this fun battle, like, and that's
yeah, and it'll be. I think one of the challenges with any sort of show like this is how they divide a story over seasons. So you look at Silo and Wool, and we're only roughly halfway through the
Mm-hmm.
first of 3 books. And
40%.
yeah, and one of the differences that I think will give Silo some longevity over other similar shows is that there are clear-cut answers. So you look at something like Snowpiercer or Under the Dome, and they're largely just driven by plot devices that never really have any resolution. There's when it comes to Under the Dome, you never find out who put the dome there or why. You just have to live with it. Whereas with Wool and Silo, there are answers and they come along the way. And so you'll see them start to be revealed in season 2. But having read all 3 books, it's very clear that, there'd be 4 or 5 seasons to actually uncover all the answers. But it's not like Stranger Things, where season 2 is basically just season 1 repeated with a few differences. And then, you know what I mean? Season 3 is season 2 butchered a bit more. There's actually going to be very different seasons and progressively exposing the rationale and the reasoning behind Bernard's actions.
But
So I think that's something that'll give the story longevity.
But as someone who hasn't read the books at all, I think it's great that I can still be like, okay, here's Bernard as a character, and I'm still not quite sure, where he lands, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know why the silos exist, how many there are, who put them there, if there are others outside of other cities, So for me, it's like, I'm still willing at this point to consider everything. So
Tim Robbins is so fantastic in that role too, that even episode 7 or 8, I knew who Bernard was, but I was like, did they change him that much from the book?
yeah,
No,
and that's what's hard for me, is because I hear you guys talk and I'm like, he's obviously a shit, but he is, but there are things where I'm like, oh, okay, and I can hear you guys being like, like shooting that down, which is so funny, and it's fine, but but I think it does work for people who have not been, in on this podcast or whatever, because you're just like, well, he's like, okay, we don't know what's going on. Yeah,
he was low key, right? I mean, he's so in.
And like it is
quietly.
poison outside, so maybe there was a reason they had to make this silo, and maybe he's doing his best, So like, I think it's nice that there's still these questions. Not for me, because you guys have made it clear, but
He's not a black and white villain,
no,
right?
I don't think so.
I think they made enough different changes to a lot of the characters from the book that, like, I'm probably not the only book reader who was legitimately questioning whether, like, there were going to be giant major changes to, like, major characters' personalities or, like, arcs.
Yeah, like I think Bernard was one of them, right?
Yeah, and that was kind of nice. It was we often talk about things like fan service and nods to the book,
Yeah.
and in
Mhm.
some ways, treating the characters like that with respect, but also giving them a bit of a twist, so that even
Yeah.
the book readers are sort of scratching their heads, going, "Oh, where is this going?" And it is. We sort of talked about this yesterday, but it is interesting the different mediums. You've got book, you've got
Hmm.
film, you've got series, and if you look at something like Snowpiercer, it's a fantastic book. It's a
Mhm.
lousy movie. It's an amazing series. And Wool dodged a bullet. Ridley Scott was going to turn it into a film, but there's no way you'd get the character development or the depth or the suspense in just 2 hours.
Yeah.
The first two episodes alone are 2 hours, let alone trying to pack all 10 hours in. And even with 10 hours, we're only halfway through the book. So I think this sort of speaks to the whole concept of adaptations, that books really benefit from adaptation as a series. And, in the movies, they've got limited time, they've got to hit
Mhm.
certain plot points, they've got to fit in quite rigid structures. And so you lose a lot of the depth that's in a book. Whereas in a series, you can start pulling on the threads, like you were saying.
And I think that's something that Hollywood has realized. I've seen like a shift toward like adaptations, like heading towards series, and like everything is so immediate. Like everything you can find online, you can find podcasts and Zoom and everything. You can't, if you're going to translate something like that, it cannot be like book to movie anymore, because there's just like all this instant like
I'm not a fan of the whole trend lately of doing movie part one and then movie part
Oh,
two.
yeah, I
yeah.
You
don't like
know,
it either.
Oh.
like
Same.
Dune, I had gone in and I have totally forgotten that it was only part one.
It's just antiquated.
I don't like that. So I wouldn't have been happy, I think, with even two Wool movies. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dune would be better as a series.
yeah. Although, there was a Dune miniseries which was actually quite good. So
Sci-fi.
yeah, sci-fi. You should check that out if you haven't watched it, Peter. I like that.
Yeah,
Although
I will.
the later seasons I thought were better than the first one. So if you're like not really into the first one, keep watching. I thought Children of Dune was better than the first one.
Yeah, and this goes back to Kelly's point. Just being able to see the threads and ideas in the book and then
Mhm.
pull on them a little bit and expand them and work them. And, it's almost like a new edition of the book, if you like, because, you're able to play with some of these concepts and really develop them more. So,
That's how I've always
I've been
felt
quite
about
impressed.
like book to movie or book to like TV adaptations. I've always hated this whole idea that, oh, I hope they don't ruin the book or spoil the book, because I've never felt that way about adaptations. Like, you have the book, it is what it is, and other stuff just adds to it and like broadens like the
Hmm.
whole. I mean, you can imagine so much in your mind. And even the author, when they write the book or the screenplay or anything, this is what they have in their brain. But like, to include other people and allow the universe to be expanded and to add things and to see that depth like pulled, it just must be
Well,
amazing.
that's what Hugh has done from the beginning. He
Hmm.
encouraged, both
Hmm.
Peter and I have written, published fan fiction, set in the Wool universe. And then there was even the comic series as well. And so it still told the same story, but it was a more visual medium, and then there was even like, I think Amazon did the whole like Kindle in motion, which
Yeah.
that's the copy that's still on my Kindle, and so it's got these little comics and drawings every so often. He's always been very, welcoming for different viewpoints.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of authors feel that way. I mean, I've had readers ask me questions about things in my books, and then I'll be like, I didn't think of that actually, but that's
You're
a
telling
great
you.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about when Jules starts ranting at Bernard, and she mentions George's door and the look on Bernard's face, his reaction.
Hmm.
So what did you guys make of that? Because there seems to be two different interpretations of his face. It's either he's surprised she knows about it, or he didn't know about it himself.
I was
I think he didn't know.
Yeah,
I
same.
think he's surprised that there's things even he doesn't know.
I definitely took it to be that he was surprised that Juliet knew about the door.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. I misheard you, Peter.
Oh, no, no.
Yeah,
I just,
yes, I agree with Kelly. I think it was just a look of like shock, like you know about the
like,
door.
oh, and there's another thing that she knows about, But I don't know. I don't know how common knowledge that is. I mean, it seems like it would be odd that he wouldn't know about the door. I mean, it's
Yeah,
Han
I mean,
Solo.
I like changed my viewpoint. The first time I saw it, I thought he just didn't know about it, so he was surprised. But
Mhm.
then, like when I watched it again, it kind of more looks like, what the heck was on that drive?
Like Jesus Christ! Like how deep did she go? You know what I mean? Like she was
Yeah,
just like
it's
God.
because he like rolls his eyes up, like what,
Yeah,
right? And then he goes
He's
straight
definitely
back to his
taken
office
back.
and he looks
like
at the
oh
hard drive pieces,
yeah.
almost like he wants to salvage what's on there because he's like, maybe I shouldn't have busted this thing up, you know? Because yeah, he seemed to know what the drive was though. Like maybe it was like
Definitely, yeah. I definitely,
something that was missing. Because once he heard that there was an 18 on it from Lucas, he was very
That's the
concerned about
serial
it, right?
number. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So it must
And they
have
were
gone
like,
missing at some point, and he knew, like, who had it before. And so this is actually a theory that I came up with recently. I think yesterday. But okay, so in the mayor's ledger that Johns is reading in like episode 2 or something, it's from the Jane Carmody. It's from the week that Jane Carmody went out to clean. But if you look at the high res screenshots and you read the page after Jane, that talks about stillbirths and stuff like that, it also mentions that same week the head of IT died of a heart attack. And so I thought, okay, so this is in 97, so it's approximately 45 years before the present. And so I thought, would that have possibly been when Bernard took power? Was he a shadow? And did he do something to the head of IT? And is that when he came into, he like took the reins?
Between the Carmody cleaning and Bernard is a revolution. So and that's when the
No,
drive gets
the the
stolen.
the rebellion is 143 years ago. That's like the start of that's like Freedom Day. So the Jane
Oh,
Carmody
okay.
cleaning is almost 100 years after the rebellion,
Okay.
at least according to what we've picked apart and stuff. So yeah, so that's why I thought maybe because Johns mentions that that's from the year 97 ledger that she's reading from, and she like opens a page and you can kind of read what all the entries are, even though it's in cursive. It's hard to decipher, but you can see what it says. So okay, so let's move on. Jules tells him, I won't clean, and she follows up on that, right? She doesn't clean.
She does like a
Even
mic drop, not clean.
yeah, a wool
Yeah,
drop.
that was sassy.
I can like totally understand that though. Like after watching everyone clean and everyone be like ooh and ahhing over the stupid screen, you would totally want to be the person who's like, "Fuck you, not fucking cleaning." Like you're just gonna walk off into the sunset.
Bernard even told her, like, hey, you've got the biggest audience ever. He already
Yeah,
set the stage for it.
He's like,
yeah.
"Everyone cleans, everyone cleans." Of course, she's not
Everyone's
gonna
gonna be
clean.
watching. But I like that her last request was to have Holston's badge. It kind of puts you like in like her frame of mind. Like
I
she
had
wants
no
to.
idea what she was gonna do with that. I'm sorry, I didn't
I,
mean to interrupt you. I know that is her frame of mind,
I
but
think she requested it because she thought, if I'm gonna go out there and if I die, the least I can do is give this back to him. Like
yeah.
this is what led me around, and I
I
did
thought
even.
she was gonna like use it to open some door.
She like picks the airlock door and gets back in.
Like, if she thought it was fake
Knock,
too,
knock,
like,
knock.
if she thought maybe other people escaped somehow and you didn't see that, she may have thought she would find him someday.
Here's your
Oh, that's
badge.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Sad.
Okay, so then they actually, they suit her up and they send her outside, and then everybody goes in the cafeteria to watch the cleaning, and this was where Hugh's cameo was. He's glaring at Knox and he's cheering on
That was
Jules.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
I actually had to stop and rewind because the whole time I was watching Hugh and not Knox.
Not
Is the
Knox.
scene supposed to be? So I had to watch it twice.
Did you guys spot him on your first way
I
through?
did
I
only
almost.
because I was looking for him. I was like, I know you're in this. So
I will confess that I honestly do not even know what Hugh looks like, and so I didn't notice him, and I'll have to go back now and
oh
watch
yeah,
this
that's fair.
again.
Yeah,
Oh
okay.
yeah, it's awesome because when Knox is going into the cafeteria, he's just glaring at him. He's like boring
He's
holes in
really
the
yeah,
back of
he's
his
really
head
yeah. He's
because he's mad. Obviously, he's in the know about what Knox did, and he turned her in. So he's like just glaring daggers at him. Later on, when Jules is about to go over the hill, like they're focusing on Knox, but you can see Hugh in the background. He's blurry,
Like,
but he's like
woohoo!
he's got his fists up in the air, like,
He's,
oh
like,
my god, you can
punching the
do
sky.
it.
Yeah, cute.
Yeah, it's great. When I saw like him with his fists up, like, oh my god, I thought, oh my god, he must watch the show like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Martha also comes to watch. I was really touched by that because it must have been. I think her fear is probably not just going outside. It's people too, right? Because she's like walking in there and she looks scared,
I
right?
always
So
hate when shows show something like that and they see people like spreading like the Red Sea. And I mean,
mm,
as someone who's also like very, I don't know, like I don't know, I'm an introvert and I stay home a lot. I call myself like a part-time hermit. So like if you like really feel like you don't go out, like seeing people like scurry away from you like that would be so sad. I wish people would have like embraced her, been like happy to see her instead of pretending like she has like a virus or something. I don't know.
so when Bernard asks, "Do you have any last words?" What did you guys think her last words were going to be?
I think you know, her last words aren't exactly like given to the public. It didn't seem like it mattered what she said, so I didn't really have any expectations. I don't think.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to say something scathing toward him, but I liked what she said. Right? She said, "I'm not afraid." Will, did you have any thoughts on what she was going to say?
I don't know that I can repeat it on podcast, but maybe like "fu" or something.
Yeah, mine was something along. That's why I said scathing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought she was gonna.
I do like what she said though. I thought it was appropriate.
But she was still in front of other people, not just Bernard, right? If I recall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like I think she was still adhering to that, like, oh, I'm pretending to go willingly because that was like part
Mm,
of the deal.
that's a good
Right.
point. Yeah.
Paul
Yeah.
was there, and
So I actually was really confused between because they had established early on that there's the down deep cafeteria and there's an up top cafeteria. I'm assuming there's other cafeterias that they just don't show us, but I was kind of confused by the switches between the two different crowds because up top and down deep are different crowds, right? They like I would think that like when she doesn't clean the down deep would cheer, and then the up top when she doesn't because there were people who were like you could hear them, they were mad, right, when she dropped the wool.
I think for me, that's always been very confusing, like how many levels and cafeterias and cameras there are.
Yeah.
I mean, I do know in the books you guys have mentioned that there's like sort of a 360-degree view, so there's like 4 cameras or
Mm.
whatever. In the show, I've always gotten the impression that they're just like broadcasting the one view on every level,
In the book, I think they only have a view up top at the very top cafeteria,
like for the
right?
privileged people, and that's like kind of what makes sense to me with the show. Seeing how everything is, like I understand that they've changed it, but that would make sense that only the most privileged were allowed to I don't know, kind of view. So
yeah, the up top is well in the books at least. The up top is all like the administration. It's the mayor. It's
Yeah.
the sheriff. It's the the accountants. It's all the it's all the people that are responsible for
Mhm.
keeping the administration going. Not to the extent of like Hunger Games, but almost like the Capitol to a certain
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
And I think in Hugh's books, it's like kind of like in thirds, where it's like the top third is the top, and then you get the mids, and then you get the down deep.
Okay, so here's another point of debate that people were interpreting two different ways. So when Jules goes to the top of the hill, she's looking out at the green landscape, and then it blinks, right? And then she sees reality. She sees that the world is dead and that there's the ruined city in the far distance. So people are interpreting this two different ways. So why does her helmet fail? Is it because Bernard ran to the server room and shut it off? Or is it because she simply goes out of range?
Oh, I didn't get the impression that that was her camera failing. I just thought they were showing us the scene like for dramatic effect.
Oh,
No,
no.
no, I've been thinking about this. So, the Jane Carmody cleaning,
Uh-huh.
which is the video that she initially watched, it was very clever of them, the way that, that is seen probably 5 or 6 times throughout the series. And then when Jules finally goes outside and she sees the birds flying in exactly the same pattern, she realizes, hey, this is fake. But if you think about it, the helmets that they wear have to work like a virtual reality suit where, if you look down, you see your feet. If you look to the left, you see something to the left, So it can't be something that's pre-recorded. It has to be something that's rendered in real time.
Mm.
And also that they could record the Carmody cleaning means that when Carmody went out there, there's some sort of Wi-Fi connection back to the
Yeah.
silo, and
Because
that's
yeah,
what they're
in that
recording.
video, you can hear her voice, right? Her reaction.
Yeah, yeah. And so then when Jules gets to the top of the hill, she's getting out of range. And as she gets out of range, reality kicks in because she's no longer getting the fake signal from the silo showing her blue skies anymore. So she's going over the hill, she's out of line of sight, and then she sees the wasteland for what it is. So for me, it
Yeah.
was quite consistent.
Yeah. So
I think,
Angela, I don't think it's that they were just showing us. I think they were just
Yeah,
trying. That
it
was
was
her point of
failing.
view. Like that's what she's seeing. She can see the dead city in the background, and she can see the dead world.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's because that VR headset is failing.
yeah, I think at least when I read the books, I kind of took it to be like maybe like a time limit because they expected the heat tape to fail so
Yeah.
quickly that they only had like 20 or 30 seconds or maybe a minute or two, whatever how long it is, prepared, and then past then the feed just cuts off and it reverts back to the regular display or something. But it's same principle of
Or maybe
getting
it
out of
just blacks
range.
out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I went back and I watched it again, and when she's looking at the green, you can see her viewpoint move a little bit more forward. So I think what it is she gets out of range and then
Hmm.
she sees it. So
Yeah, I think
There
so.
must be like an area where that covers. I mean, the silos are so close together from what we see. I mean, there's not much gap space between. So, like,
yeah,
if the helmet works in only a certain area, but like, I felt like I don't know. I felt like she got out to a certain place. I mean, they only expect them to live a certain amount of time. Like
yeah,
he definitely says right on schedule. Schedule implies to me like not right on time. He didn't say it was right on time. He didn't say it was schedule implies something that was planned. Do you know what I mean? So I definitely felt like that they
Hmm.
planned for Juliet to die at a certain moment and then like okay.
I did feel a little like smug about that because she's not doing what he thinks, right? She's not like
Right, sure.
sick. She's just trips on a rock. It's just a happy coincidence, right?
But if you think back about Holston's cleaning, you see them like stumble at a certain. That's always the
Yeah,
place where they
yeah.
are like, "Oh, I'm feeling sick," or "It's
They
gotten
start
to
looking
me,"
woozy.
like, "Oh, right before the tree." Which the
Yeah,
other silos didn't seem to have a tree, which I thought was like really
yeah.
depressing. Like
I
you
know.
don't have that like place where
I
you're like
know.
aiming for.
Yeah, your view is just like nothing. It's just dirt.
Yeah, they got lucky
dirt
with
and
that tree.
dirt and bodies. Yeah, because I kind of like that tree. It was a
It's a
nice little thing
marker.
up the hill.
It's a marker.
Yeah, I would have clung to it if I was down there.
Yeah.
Ah, oh my god, it's gonna be a long wait to season 2.
Yeah.
So, what did you guys think about the final shot? Did you? A lot of people have been commenting that they weren't expecting the silos to be so close together.
I didn't.
And
I like. I only in the past few episodes thought there were more than one silo, so I definitely thought they'd be a little further apart. But I really believe in my. I haven't read anything, but that they must be connected together some way, and there must be some sort of like way that they communicate, and that would be way harder if they were further apart than they are. So
George's tunnel.
I think I might be the only one here who only watched the episode once, but they show it for such a brief amount of time that the scale is like undeterminable. Like
Mhm.
they could have been in very like wide range,
I
just
don't.
like
If
really
you
really
think
zoomed
about
out.
how wide the silo is, and I was looking at, and I know it's just editing with a TV series, but you look at how big the silo is, how big the camera is, how big her body is, and then we pan out. It seems like they are very, I don't know, like not so far from each other at all. So
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like football fields being next to each other. One detail I liked was when they panned out, you saw the back of the opposite side to which she walked, the back of the silo,
mhm.
and there was actually an area where vehicles could drive in. So where the hill had been sort of carved out, and it's sort
Yeah.
of given you a hint of the past and the builders and the founders and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That
how
it
it must
wasn't
have
just this
been.
perfect crater. So
Yeah.
I kind of like that little detail.
Okay, so this is something that somebody figured out on Reddit. I don't know if this is show accurate, but this seems to be at least reality accurate. But somebody found, according to this, the skyline that she sees. Somebody
Oh yeah,
matched
I
it.
saw that. They
Some
matched it.
Yeah, they matched it up to this Google Maps photo
Oh
taken
my
from a
god.
really big cemetery in Atlanta. It's kind of
Yeah,
amazing.
in Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it makes a
It's
lot
so
of sense when
great
you.
that they're still in Georgia though. Like the whole, you know.
Yeah, it matches the book.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I mean,
great.
Yeah.
the book she found,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
wool.
Welcome to Georgia.
But like you go if you go and you read the Wikipedia entry for this Westview Cemetery place, it's kind of amazing. It's like apparently it's the largest civilian cemetery in southeastern United States, comprising of more than 582 acres. So it's big. So that's kind of a cool location if that's actually meant to be like where it actually is in the show. But yeah, I'll send you guys the link. It's pretty cool how the city skyline lines up perfectly. If you're standing in the cemetery and you look at Atlanta, that's exactly the same one that she sees. It lines up really nicely. So
Yeah, and the cemetery is a nice little thematic thing.
yeah. Yeah. Like it's almost like all those silos that you see are like just graves, right? Because they're all buried under the earth. So yeah. That was a nice touch. When somebody figured that out, my mind was blown.
Yeah, it's really cool.
All right, any final thoughts? Oh my god, we've been going for a long time,
I
but
know.
at least I
I,
recorded this one.
Yay!
Hey,
No, thanks
Really
so much,
looking
you
forward
guys,
to
for like
season
coming
2.
back. Like that was, I appreciate it a lot.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it was good.
Thank you so much. You guys are very accommodating. But yeah, any final thoughts on the season? Will, you're our lone binger, so
yeah, I didn't say it today. I did say it yesterday. Yeah, I didn't start on this one until about 2.5 weeks ago. Um, it it really works as a binge show. Like um, the day the cliffhanger when Juliet leapt off the stairs in that one episode. I didn't have to go very far before I found out that she was okay in the next episode.
meanwhile we were all over here like, is she gonna parachute? Is she gonna have a rope? Is she...
Yeah. But it really works as a binge show, and I know I'd seen. I think I saw a tweet from Tim Robbins a day or two ago saying, "All right, binge watchers, now's your chance." And I would definitely encourage anybody who, whether you're a book reader or not, like go watch the show. It is great, and it's just amazing to see this. This book that basically followed from when it was first written. There's a very good chance that if nobody paid attention to this short story, that Holston is the only character who dies,
Mhm,
and it just
mhm.
exists as a short story back in 2012. And but people liked it, and Hugh kept writing, and this is what we have. And it's just kind of amazing that this story that in some ways was pantsed really became this fully fleshed out world. And it's just amazing to see.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch week to week. I get what you're saying about binging, but yeah, me and Kelly we've had a lot of fun doing week to week and breaking it down every week. So,
Yeah,
um,
it wouldn't be as fun. I don't think. Like
yeah,
even if it
yeah,
were just a show that like came out, bam, and it's done. That's not fun to make a podcast for. So I'm here
yeah.
for
Plus,
this.
I think I,
I think I would get them all confused, and I think I
Yeah,
might have said, yeah, we would have said things from like the
stall.
wrong episode
Yeah.
and things.
I think it can be more fun and more memorable to watch it week to week because then you
Oh,
like
me
think
too.
about it between like I remember watching Lost week to week and year to
Yeah,
year and
yeah,
going on
Oh,
forums and talking about it and like
that was
you were like
me.
you were really stuck on it for like a while, and I think Silo presents the same sort of like questions and mystery, and you could think about it, and like it's fun to be able to press play on the next one immediately, but I think it's kind of fun to like ruminate on it for a
Yeah, I'm
while.
not sure it's even fun. It's just what we're used to, you know? Like
yeah.
I don't think we even realize what it's like to like I mean, I don't know how old you guys are, but like living in a generation where like it switched from every Monday night at 7 o'clock I had to be there to watch like my show. And now it's like what show I can binge watch like 3 shows this weekend and those weeks. Like there's no I don't know.
Yeah, like my kids, I think if I were to tell them that, you have to have an appointment to watch this show, right?
You
You
know,
have you
I work at this like little K-8 independent school in Oregon, and we have like some parents who don't even let their kids watch TV. So like they're watching Mister Rogers, and the kids they don't know what TV is or what Netflix is. They just know that like they can turn on the television and watch like 25 minutes of Mister Rogers, and they don't. they have no idea because cable as such doesn't exist as it used to, where
Yeah.
everyone has cable. They don't realize you can just turn the TV on and get whatever TV you want whenever. So
Yeah, because I mean, when we were kids, if you weren't there, you missed it, right?
yeah, you just
And if you weren't rich enough to have a VHS that
Mhm.
could record it, right? Yeah, too bad.
Now it's like if you're poor, you can VHS it. If you're rich, you have the like pre-recorded.
Okay, let's wrap things up. So I've been talking about my silo blanket. I finished it. Oh my god, I
Looks
finished it literally.
amazing. It's so
I
good.
finished it literally
Yay!
2 hours before the the finale. I was trying to rush into it, and oh my god, I did. I didn't weave in the ends, but I
That's
did
really
finish it.
lovely.
But and I took some photos. So if you want to check that out, you can go on YouTube and just search for knitted silo blanket, and you'll see my blanket. So.
That's cool.
But yeah, so we want to thank our guests for coming back twice,
Thank
breaking
you really
down,
so much. It's just
breaking
so
down the
lovely.
finale with us. We hope you guys had a blast talking about this, and we hope you enjoyed watching the show. And we would love to have you back for season 2.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our final episode breakdown of Wires from the Deep. We hope you have enjoyed listening to us as we've been going along. We've got a couple more
Yeah.
episodes to go. We have our interview with Hugh Howey. We actually recorded that before this episode, but I'm gonna edit that, and it's gonna come out in a couple days. So stay tuned for that. And then we have one more wrap up episode after that, and then after that we'll see. But other than that, we'll see
Let's see
you.
what happens. It's so exciting. I'm excited.
We hope you guys are back for season 2.
Woohoo! Yay.
Yeah, if you've been enjoying our podcast, be sure to tell other Saddle fans that they can find us at wiresfromthedeep.com and leave us a review on your podcasting platform of choice. If you don't want to just wait around doing nothing between seasons, you can join the Down Deep Discord by going to downdeep.net and following the invite link to join discussions with other fans. We're probably going to be speculating until we're blue in the face
Absolutely.
with nothing better to do. But yeah, if you want to contact me and Kelly, you can leave us a comment on Podbean or Spotify or one of our YouTube videos, or you can email us at crystal@thedowndeep.net. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone.